Hello. For those who don't know me, my name is Michael. I am an American living in Hiroshima, Japan. So today I am reacting to The War of the Bucket by OverSimplified. So, OverSimplified always makes great content. If you like history, you should definitely check out their channel. It is amazing. Their videos are hilarious, super informative. They really, really do an excellent job covering history in a very fun and engaging way. So, let's get into the video.
Hey, you. Yeah, you. New merch available now, including a supremely uncool t-shirt and a glorious new character pin. Link in the description down below. Alright folks, gather round. I've got some good news and some bad news. Did you say good news and glad news? No, I said good news and bad news. Very bad news. Word on the street is there's going to be a horrible plague coming in from Central Asia in the next couple decades that'll wipe out half of Europe. What's the good news? Do you have a cure? Please say you have a cure. No. Even better. The good news is, we've got a new bucket for this city well. To understand the War of the Bucket, we first need to talk about this guy. He's the man with the plan, the host with the most. He's holy, lowly, he eats ravioli, with the white cassock, matching pellegrina, and the most tasteful of fringed fascias. Come on, y'all know who I'm talking about. It's the Pope, the head of the largest religious organization in the world. But what if I told you he wasn't always the big bad boy powerhouse he's often thought as today? That's right. Throughout history, the papacy often found itself forced to wrestle against adversity and opposition to retain its authority. The earliest popes, for example, suffered under the brutal persecution of the Roman Empire, and many ended up martyred, such as Pope Clement I, who was ostensibly thrown into the sea with an anchor around his neck. On the bright side, however, he's now the patron saint of fishermen.
Okay, this is kind of interesting that they found themselves at odds with the Roman Empire. The Roman Empire basically established the Catholic Church under Constantine. When Constantine converted to Christianity, he basically brought the Roman Empire with him. But he wanted to basically help ease the transition from a lot of Roman pagan beliefs to Christianity, so he helped establish kind of a new order, being the Catholic Church, and that's how Catholicism actually got going.
After persecution finally ended, the Pope still found himself being heavily controlled by secular kings and nobility. For over 2 centuries, the Byzantine emperor basically decided who could become Pope. Then came a real low point, during what has been called the Dark Age, a period where noblewomen controlled the Pope through, how should I put this? Feminine charm. It was around here that one infamous Pope, John XII, took office. This bad boy would hold, how should I put this? Naughty no-clothes parties in the Lateran Palace. And apparently, this would even happen. Come on, Zeus, give me a 6. Did I say Zeus? I meant Thor. Ra, the Egyptian sun god? Dang it, who is it we worship? Perhaps you should read this, Your Holiness. In the beginning, God created the heavens and the earth? Wow, this is wild! Pope John XII eventually died exactly how he lived, caught in the act by an irate husband who picked the Pope up and chucked him out the window.
Yeah, Pope John XII was rather secular in nature. He was not exactly as religious as some other popes had been. So basically around this time, a lot of popes did in fact engage in some rather not so holy activities. A lot of them violated their vows of chastity, for instance. They slept around. They did indeed engage in some activities that didn't exactly make the papacy and the Catholic Church look great. They ended up abusing their positions for personal financial gain and held a lot of lavish parties. So it's kind of this type of behavior that later was one of the reasons for the Protestant Reformation. I mean, in reality, there were a whole bunch of reasons, but this was one of them.
The point I'm trying to make here is that often the Pope was a very weak and corruptible figure, and was regularly used and controlled by secular leaders as a tool to increase their own power and influence. And there was certainly an element of that in the year 800, when the Pope and the Kingdom of the Franks were good BFFs, and King of the Franks, Charlemagne, was like, hey man, being King of the Franks is nice and all, but I want more legitimacy, and also to become the continuation of the Roman Empire. So what say in return for my protection, you crown me Emperor so everyone will respect me more? Sure thing, pal. We'll hold the ceremony tomorrow. Charlemagne, King of the Franks, I hereby crown you Emperor of the West. Oh, Oh my goodness. I was not expecting this at all. What a surprise. I simply cannot accept. Oh, okay then. I guess I'll just put this back over here. Give me that crown! Charlemagne's crowning as emperor was certainly an historic moment, but it also created a bit of an
Okay, so after the Western Roman Empire collapsed, the eastern part of the Roman Empire became the Byzantine Empire. But there was kind of somewhat of a resurgence, of course, around the Holy Roman Empire days, that when Charlemagne ended up establishing the Holy Roman Empire, this was seen somewhat as a continuation of the former Roman Empire that had fallen, in a way, though it of course was not nearly as powerful. It was still quite influential, though, and Charlemagne did manage to increase its power through his various actions and conquests.
interesting problem. It set the precedent that from here on out, only the Pope could crown an emperor, but the Pope was also very much under the influence and control of Charlemagne. So who really held the power here? The Pope or the Emperor? I'm sure that this conflict won't cause anyone to die. Bishop of Freising, we want to thank...
Yeah, Charlemagne was actually fairly supportive of the Pope. However, a lot of later Holy Roman emperors were not so much.
Thank you once again for visiting our wonderful city. It's been an honor. The pleasure is all mine, and what a wonderful tour it's been. I've seen the city walls, I've seen the towers, nothing could top that. Oh, couldn't it? Because we've saved the best for last. Ta-da! Yes, that's very interesting. Isn't it the greatest thing you've ever seen? Well, I mean, it is just a bucket. Get him out of here! Over time, Charlemagne's position as emperor and the kingdom of the Franks gradually evolved into the Holy Roman Empire. And by now, the Pope and the Emperor weren't such good friends anymore, since neither could agree on who was the boss of who. To make matters worse, the Emperor had taken to investing his own bishops and abbots. What does that mean? Well, allow me to explain. The problem for the Holy Roman Emperor was his empire wasn't really an empire, so much as a nightmarish federation made up of hundreds of counties, duchies, bishoprics, and more. The princes in charge of these local regions often didn't give the emperor their loyalty. The German nobility spent a lot of their time rebelling against the emperor, and the emperor spent a lot of his time trying to put down those rebellions. Can we get rid of them? Who? All the nobility. Get rid of them and pick new ones who are loyal to me. You can't just remove noble families from their territory. Please? Aw, okay, how about this? Some of those territories are ruled by bishops and abbots, and as Holy Roman Emperor, considered by many to be the deputy of Jesus Christ himself, perhaps you can choose who gets to become bishop and abbot. Yay! Now it's time to turn out the lights and go to sleep. Okay, I love you. Okay, good night. Say it back. And so it was. The emperor invested his own family and loyal followers into powerful church positions, and thereby was able to increase his own power and authority.
Okay, this is a normal thing in history. Throughout history, there are times that people have used, lots of leaders have used religion to try to increase their power and influence, and kind of abuse religion for personal gain. This is nothing new. This happens all the time, unfortunately.
Not only that, but the emperor and other nobility were also engaging in something called simony. That's when someone would come along and say, hey, I want to become a bishop and get all the personal riches that come with the position. Perhaps we could come to some kind of arrangement. That's right. Church positions were actually being sold to the highest bidder. And let me tell you, they probably didn't come cheap. It's going to cost you a lot more than this. I don't think so. I've got a promo code. And speaking of promo codes, do you like free money? I know I do. I really like it. And that's why I use Honey. Honey is a free browser extension that automatically finds the best promo codes whenever you shop online. For free. This means you always get the best deals without even trying on over 20,000 sites like Amazon, eBay, ASOS, and more. For example, here I am buying 7 pizzas after a long day of animating. It's currently costing me $130. Oh, hello, honey. You have a voucher for me, you say? All I have to do is click, you say? Nice. I saved $31.78, and all I did was click. There is absolutely no reason not to use Honey for everything you buy online. It's free and literally takes 2 clicks to install. Get Honey for free at joinhoney.com/oversimplified. That's joinhoney.com/oversimplified. And as always, by using my links, you'll be supporting my channel, so thank you. Now where were we? Oh yeah. Investing bishops and abbots, selling church positions, authority, and power. Wait a minute! This is depravity! The purpose of the church isn't for him to increase his own authority and power, it's for me to increase my own authority and power. What about Jesus, Your Holiness? What? I thought the purpose of the church was to spread the good message of Jesus Christ. How drunk are you? Very.
So yeah, conflict between the Pope and the Emperor. Both of them wanted power. There was only so much power to go around. Obviously, when the Emperor is basically trying to use religion at that point to increase his power, obviously the Pope is not going to be happy, because not only does this reduce the Pope's power in general, it also reduces the Pope's control over the church, and obviously the Pope wants total control over the church to run things, so the more control over the church the Emperor has, the less control over the church the Pope has. Yeah, I can see where this is going.
Alright, the results for the election of Chief Magistrate are in. Giovanni Kablami, 1%. Spaghetti Jeff, 2%. And the bucket, 1,000,000,000,000%. Around the year 1050, a series of reformist popes came along, and they said enough was enough. They wanted to stop the emperor from abusing the church and investing his own church officials. How are you going to stop me so long as I have control over who becomes pope? Remember the circular power division? If you try to stop me, I'll just depose you and pick someone else. Oh no, I've contracted tuberculosis! And just like that, the emperor was dead. His 6-year-old son, Henry IV, took over.
Okay, child emperors, obviously this creates problems. If in a lot of relatively more recent times, when there's been someone who has been in line to become for the throne of like a monarchy, who was a kid, they sometimes have delayed the kid taking the throne until the kid was old enough, and had like a steward in charge, or have other people run the country in the meantime. But in this case, if they put a young kid on the throne, obviously the young kid will be inexperienced, perhaps easily controllable. A lot of people will try to get very close and cuddly with the kid and very friendly with the kid to try to get on the kid's good side and influence the kid that way and get what they want. That is a typical trend, that when you have a child king or emperor or queen or empress, people will try to get cozy with the kid in order to, I mean, even not just kids. There have been other cases where people have tried to become friends with a monarch who was relatively young and inexperienced in order to basically gain influence and control. Like this happened with Cardinal, I think Cardinal Wolsey with King Henry VIII, for instance. He was friends with King Henry VIII, and he managed to gain a lot of influence by getting on King Henry's good side, for instance. So even though King Henry was an adult at that point in time.
And as we all know, child emperors equal opportunity. The church had an opening to take back control of the papacy. Hey man, I hope you don't mind, but we're changing the rules so that only the church cardinals can elect the pope, and you no longer have any say in the matter. You know, if that's cool with you.
Huh, so this was when cardinals started electing the pope? Interesting. Yeah, I didn't know that this was when it started that the cardinal could elect the pope then. Or cardinals were in charge of deciding the position. So, interesting.
I peed my pants. Okay, great talk. Then, with the position of the Pope a little more secure, he held a big meeting where he drew up a big list of all the reforms and new powers he was giving himself. And it included some pretty gnarly stuff. Okay, first, I have the power to depose emperors. Everyone cool with that? Yeah? Let's see. Only I can depose or reinstate bishops. Yeah? Alright, no one can judge me. All princes shall only kiss my feet. Only my name shall be spoken in the churches. My name is the only name in the world. Okay, I think you're done.
Okay, this is actually an interesting point. How the Pope was basically almost turning himself into a god figure like this, which kind of goes against like a lot of Christian teachings that you're not supposed to idolize people, but instead worship God instead. So this actually is interesting. This later on would again be one of the reasons for the Protestant Reformation, in which there was opposition to the Pope kind of being so cocky and arrogant in a way, and having so much control like this, and not really being very humble in nature.
These were all some pretty radical powers the Pope was giving himself, and with these reforms, the Pope was basically telling the Emperor, you no longer have the right to choose your own bishops and abbots. Only I can do that. When the Emperor, now a full-grown man, heard the news, he was furious. What? This is madness! Who does this guy think he is? I'm the Emperor, for goodness sake! He can't tell me what to do! I'll invest my own bishops and abbots if I want to, and this rapscallion can go right to heck! I peed my pants again! The whole conflict escalated when Henry IV went to the Pope and said, hey, guess what, sucker? You're deposed. Oh? Wait a minute? I'm the Pope! You can't depose me! You're deposed! Oh. Wait a minute! I'm the Emperor! You can't depose me! You're deposed! Oh. Wait a minute! Eventually, the German princes took advantage of the situation, and they all turned against Henry. Henry was forced to apologize to the Pope, and the whole thing ended there. Except it didn't. The whole conflict, known today as the investiture controversy, would continue on for centuries as popes and emperors engaged in a power struggle over the emperor choosing his own church officials. The overall result of this conflict is very intricate and full of complexities, but in general, the Pope was able to increase his authority. Great news, Your Holiness! Your influence is on the rise throughout civilized Europe, except for this one city in northern Italy. Really? What's going on there? As for the Emperor, he found his realm thrown into further chaos and civil war, as the local princes continued to increase their own power and independence. This was most notably the case in northern Italy. Separated from the rest of the Holy Roman Empire by the Alps, the Emperor's influence and control over Italy had often been questionable. In the current chaos, these Italian city-states began operating almost entirely independently. Their practical independence was further solidified when Emperor Frederick Barbarossa came down in 1176 to try to reassert his control. The cities formed an alliance, and with the Pope's support, they kicked the Emperor right back to Germany. Hooray, said the Italian city-states. We did it! We're the best of friends. And then they immediately began attacking each other. Why? Well, this whole Pope versus Emperor thing, in Italy at least, had infiltrated society to...
Yeah, a big thing to kind of remember. We nowadays think of Europe as a bunch of different countries then. Like, we consider Italy nowadays to be one country, and France to be one country, and Germany to be one country that have a lot of basically better unified politically. But throughout European history, there were lots and lots of city-states that were not very unified. Like in Italy, there were plenty of different city-states that were not exactly unified into one country totally. They were technically part of the Holy Roman Empire here, but again, they had a lot of local control and a lot of local autonomy. So they did in fact have a lot of conflicts, like Florence and Venice and other city-states sometimes would have conflicts with each other and not always get along and weren't really united.
Its very core. Across Italy, families and cities were torn between two opposing sides. On one side, the Guelphs, who supported the Pope's cause. On the other, the Ghibellines, who supported the Emperor. These two sides struggled for control as Guelph cities battled against Ghibelline ones. As usual, personal interest played a pretty big role, as pro-Pope Guelph cities tended to be rich mercantile ones who didn't like the Emperor's taxes. Emperors supporting Ghibellines, on the other hand, were often agricultural, where the expanding papal states were a larger threat. These cities would sometimes even switch sides depending who is in charge and their ever-changing personal interests.
Yeah, changing sides, that is nothing new either. Countries regularly change sides. Alliances between countries often don't last. I mean, throughout history, there's all sorts of cases where countries will work together and cooperate and get along really well, like good buds, and then next thing you know, they're at war with each other, and then a short time later, they're allies again. That is pretty normal throughout history.
In some cities, brutal fighting broke out in the streets as opposing families fought for control. At times, the conflict became so tribal that the differences between the two sides were just downright silly. My love, I can't bear it. We must be together. But how can we? My Ghibelline family wears feathers on the left side of their caps, and your Guelph family wears them on the right. My Ghibelline family cuts fruit straight down, and your Guelph family cuts fruit crosswise. These are arbitrary differences. We shouldn't let them tear us apart. We can be together no matter what our families think. Wonderful news! Let's make a toast to our love. I'll drink from my Ghibelline smooth goblet, and I shall drink from my Guelph chaste goblet. Get out of my sight, you dirty Pope-loving wench. Two cities stick.
Huh. I wonder if this was part of the inspiration for Romeo and Juliet. Because Romeo and Juliet was set to take place in Italy, so I wonder if this is the idea that Shakespeare got it from, was different rival families then that didn't get along. I mean, I don't know if Shakespeare got inspiration from this idea or not, but maybe?
States in particular that got caught in a long-standing rivalry was the emperor supporting Modena and the pope supporting, bucket-loving, Bologna. These two cities had bad blood between them, as they had already fought against each other on a number of occasions. In 1249, the two sides took part in the Battle of Fasolta, after which the victorious Bolognese launched a live donkey into Modena to humiliate them.
Okay, I'm sorry, maybe I shouldn't be laughing. I mean, honestly, that seems a little cruel. So yeah, maybe I shouldn't laugh, I'm sorry.
Decades after that, the two sides would occasionally take little day trips into each other's territory and mess things about a bit. In the fateful year of 1325, the Bolognese went on one such trip and laid waste to some farmlands. The ruler of Modena, Passerino de Bonacolsi, was having none of it. The Bolognese had two major forts protecting their city in the southwest, so Passerino, in retaliation, decided to take an army down and lay siege to one of them. Hey, you dirty Bolognese jerks! You think you can raid our farmlands? Come out here and face me like a man. Hey man, what's up? I've just come out to let you know that there's no need to siege us because— Whoa, hey man, chill out. I'm trying to tell you— Whoa, stop doing that. I'm trying to tell you I'm actually secretly sympathetic to the imperial cause and I want to willingly hand the fort over to you. Oh, cool. Okay. Dude, what was that for? For betraying your people. And this is for joining mine. Mwah. The Bolognese were pretty unhappy to lose one of their main defensive forts, but to make matters worse, then this happened. Hey, wait a minute. Where's the bucket? Oh no, it's gone. Those Modenese must have taken it. We'll make them pay. This is unacceptable. They may take our lives. They may take our fort, but they will never take our bucket. Oh wait, here it is. I found it, guys. It's right here. Phew. Could you imagine if we started a war over that? That would have been really stupid, and there'd probably be 1 billion videos about it on YouTube one day. Thank goodness it never actually happened. That's right. The famous story you may know about the War of the Bucket, that the war started because Modena stole Bologna's bucket, doesn't actually seem to be quite right. I was surprised to find that the bucket was likely not actually stolen at the start of the war. And at this point, I want to thank and give a big shout out to fellow history YouTuber M. Laser. He's the one guy I found who actually translated a fantastic original Italian source, and then kindly allowed me to use his work in my own research. He does really well researched and in-depth videos, and definitely deserves way more subscribers, so please head on over and check him out. The real reason Bologna seems to have declared war on Modena is simply that they both hated each other, supported opposing factions, the Pope had pulled on Guelph cities to attack Passerino, and Bologna wanted its fort back. And they were gonna get it back. Bologna had a large force, much larger than what Modena could muster up, so they felt pretty confident. They sent half their force to lay siege and take back the fort, and the other half took defensive positions to prevent the Modenese from crossing the river. The smaller Modenese force were struggling to find a place to cross, so one night they were like, "Hey guys, look out, we're attacking way up here in the north, better move your troops." Oh, would you look at that? That was easy. And just like that, the Modenese were across the river. The Bolognese were probably expecting the Modenese to come and break their siege, but instead, the Modenese went for the second fort at Zappolino. Bologna couldn't afford to lose both of its defensive forts, so the entire Bolognese force moved to take defensive positions at Zappolino. When the Modenese arrived, it was already late in the day, and there were about 2 hours of sunlight left. In most medieval battles, at this point, both sides would set up a camp, rest for the night, and prepare for battle the next day. But the outnumbered Modenese decided the only way to win was to deal a quick, decisive blow while the Bolognese were still unorganized and unprepared. And that's exactly what they did. They charged at the Bolognese line, and the two sides engaged in fierce combat. Then the sneaky Modenese pulled what must be the most predictable, yet somehow consistently surprising move in medieval warfare. They sent the cavalry around the side and hit them from behind. Bing bang bong, the Bolognese went on the run. With casualties in the thousands, Modena had won, and the Modenese cavalry chased the Bolognese cavalry all the way back to the city. After Modena's victory, they went on a tour of the Bolognese countryside, burning some stuff down along the way. When they reached the city itself, instead of laying siege, they set up a camp and basically held a massive party for 3 days. The defeated Bolognese could only sit back and watch. As the Modenese force began packing up and getting ready to leave, they noticed something. Oh my gosh. Hey, check this out. No way. Are you kidding me? They're still using traditional wells. Hey you dumb Bolognese, ever heard of an artesian well? You can't even get water out of the ground without using a stupid bucket. It's not a stupid bucket. It's a wonderful bucket. Yeah, whatever, bucket boy. We're taking this with us. So Modena stole Bologna's bucket and put it up on display in their cathedral, eventually moving it to the city hall, where it remains on display to this day. The two cities came to a peace settlement a few months later. Bologna would have to pay heavy war reparations, and in exchange, Modena would return all conquered territories. Modena kept the bucket. Despite being one of the bloodiest battles in medieval Italian history, it didn't really change anything, except now Modena had Bologna's bucket. As for the larger power struggle between the Pope and the Holy Roman Emperor, that would continue on for some time and played a part in many major events of medieval history, such as the Crusades, the Protestant Reformation, eventually leading to the general separation of church and state we see in Europe today. So there you have it. We learnt about the Pope and the Holy Roman Emperor, the investiture controversy, and finally, the War of the Bucket. It's been a long day, and it's time to turn out the lights and go to sleep. Okay, I love you. Okay, good night. Say it back!
Okay, so my thoughts. First of all, fantastic video, very funny, very humorous, typical what you expect of OverSimplified. They always make great stuff. As far as the war goes, I mean, it mentioned it didn't really change much except with control of a bucket. So yeah, war is generally pretty terrible, obviously. So, I mean, it's kind of a shame, but Europe has a very, very bloody history. There's been a lot of infighting, and sometimes this fighting leads to more fighting in which the losing side wants revenge. There's often a tendency throughout much of European history to make the loser pay, and that when a side lost, that side had to lose territory or had to pay war reparations. This helped lead to tensions in which the losing side wanted revenge, which helped lead to more conflict in many cases, and they felt that they had basically were justified because they were getting back what was stolen from them. So yeah, a lot of this doesn't really accomplish much. It just makes more people, more blood spilled, more lives lost. It's really for the worse. So, and as far as the general, all these city-states, over time there would be a transition towards countries becoming larger and more united, but it would take a really long time. So the existence of a lot of these European city-states would continue for a really long time. Obviously, the tensions between the Pope and eventually the Pope tensions wouldn't just be between the Pope and the Holy Roman Emperor, but other monarchs or princes or various lords also would have tensions with the Pope. And this would eventually lead to, again, the Protestant Reformation. Part of the reason Protestantism became so supported and took off was because a lot of these local lords and monarchs felt that by encouraging the spread of Protestantism, it would weaken the popes and the Catholic Church's power, and that would thus give them more control over their own areas, that they would no longer have to deal with sharing power with the Pope anymore. They could have complete control themselves. So yeah. So yeah, this was not obviously the end of the tensions with the various local rulers and the Catholic Church then. That would continue for a really long time then. But it shows how much of this got started. So overall, I think this does a pretty good job then. I enjoyed the video. Really informative then. Really great content. So, and those are my thoughts on it. So, thank you everyone for watching. If you want to see more, please subscribe. I will admit I don't upload videos very often, but I'm trying to upload more over time. So, and thanks for watching, and have a good one. See you!